So today is a special day on Teaching Through Emotions. We have a teacher who's going to tell us her story right here and now online in real life with Joe and me to ask questions and try to frame it and just do our Teaching Through Emotions teacher support group work and see where we can get. If you're a regular listener of this podcast, then you know that I really care about the arts and how teachers use the arts to engage in positive ways with their students. And if you're looking for inspiring stories of how arts educators are transforming lives, I am here to tell you that I have found your next podcast, Arts Educators Save the World. Winner of the 2025 Earworthy Award for Best Education Podcast, Arts Educators Save the World features conversations between successful artists and their mentors about the impact that arts education has had on both their lives. And they have had some incredible guests. Check out their back catalog with superstars like Josh Radnor, Bradley Whitford, SNL's Cecily Strong, writer of Frozen, Avenue Q, and Book of Mormon, Bobby Lopez, Jonathan Groff, and the one and only Lin-Manuel Miranda. And if I were to say which arts educator has inspired me the most, it would have to be my husband, Brad Wells, founder of the Grammy Award-winning new music vocal band Room Full of Teeth and professor emeritus from Williams College. He has inspired so many with his kindness and vision and creative genius. And when he hears this, he is going to kill me. Arts Educators Save the World. Tune in.
When this started, I confess I did not understand. I guess maybe that's how it all turned out to be. Well, such a mess.
If you're new here, welcome. I'm Betsy Burris, a teacher, educator, and psycho coach. Every week, I podcast or write on Substack about using your emotions to feel better and teach better. Sometimes you'll hear stories of educators as told to me or sent into the Teaching Through Emotions hotline, all of them discussed with me and my co-host, Joe Johnson. And sometimes you'll hear an interview with someone who offers an interesting perspective on teaching and learning. We unpack it all here on the feed and on Substack. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, Donna. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Great to have you.
Let's begin with the very basic question, Donna, of what happened? What is the story that you have to tell us?
Yeah, I have a student or had a student last year who seemed to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder and started to progressively come out a little more as we began reading a book that was centered around a major cultural event of the language that I teach. And towards the end of this book that we were reading, I took some time to really praise the class. I said, you guys are awesome. This is such an amazing, and I was excited and I was wanting them to understand how amazing that was to be doing in a second year of language learning. And the student blurted out, and it was riveting. And that was hard to hear. And that was one of a variety of small things that occurred. But that really was the moment that I wanted to share.
And I assume this was then just meant sarcastically, like it was slammed.
Absolutely.
How many kids in the class?
I'd say around 20-ish.
And it was definitely loud enough for everybody to hear? And was it meant for everybody to hear?
It was loud. It was not loud as in he was directly speaking to me. It was quote unquote under the breath, but yet it was loud and we all heard.
Okay.
I'd
Did
say
kids
it was,
laugh?
No, actually, no one really laughed. And I responded back probably a little defensively, which in hindsight, I wish I had not. I was fairly calm. I kept my cool and I, in my mind, thought to myself, okay, remember, this is data, this is information, this is feedback. I think I acknowledged that perhaps it may not have been interesting to everyone, or it may not have been as deep of a book as something you'd read in your own language at your current level of language in, first language. But then I spun it back to this is still amazing. It doesn't change that you just finished a book.
It seems like you were very, very generous and kind in the face of what seemed like a really sarcastic and somewhat aggressive comment. You were lovely. Sounds really nice.
Well, thank you. And I may not be remembering every detail as clearly as it's been probably a year and a half now or a year, but I'm sure I showed in my face maybe some surprise. Probably I felt inside a bit sad about the comment, a little frustrated, a little undermined, disrespected. So I'm sure most of that, if I know myself, showed on my face, despite not wanting it to.
Oh, it's tough.
You said, I responded defensively. Do you remember what the defensive response was?
I don't remember the exacts. I know that I, again, probably showed a little frustration and surprise, and honestly don't remember exactly what I said. I'm sure it was something a bit defensive. And then I remember kind of coming back around, trying to kind of jump out of that. I know that recognize that's probably not my best option. And so I started to come back around to the doesn't change that we just read this book. This is amazing. You guys are learning all this new vocabulary and reading. It's awesome.
Yeah. So let's say that had been said by a kid that you didn't even know, who had never said anything before. Would that have been the same amount of hurtful as it was coming from a kid that you had interacted with before? I guess I would just want to know how previous interactions with this kid would have, or how they did affect the depth to which this hurt or stung.
I honestly think I probably would have been upset no matter who said it to me.
I mean,
But yes, this student had the undertones of passive aggressiveness with me throughout that whole quarter. So it's hard to determine whether I would have responded differently or not.
yeah.
I did already sort of have perceptions of negativity. So perhaps it was affected by that.
Very often, sarcasm is a defense mechanism where you're throwing something at someone else so that they don't look at the stains that are all over you. You know, if I throw this big water balloon full of chocolate pudding and it hits you, you won't see that I'm coated in chocolate pudding. Was this like a defensive thing that he did regularly, or how was he doing in the class?
Not that well at that point. This was, say, quarter one, and we were maybe second month of school. So without turning a lot of work in, it's also difficult sometimes to determine where a student's level is. But that particular student is taking Spanish 1 again to be more confident in their skills, which shows that they weren't feeling very confident in their language skills. So not well. As the year continued, they struggled quite a bit with being able to talk with assignments.
Did that same kind of attitudinal thing continue as the year went on? Were there other little moments of biting comments or sarcasm?
Yeah, there were definitely continued issues. That was the one issue that really stuck with me because it stung. The comment stung. But the passive aggressive behavior continued throughout the year until towards the end of the year. And I'm not quite sure what the shift was, but the last few months of the year, they came around and the relationship seemed to shift, which was great.
Were there other things, like you said, he wasn't doing very well in the class generally, as I was thinking maybe this is a defensive kind of thing. In what ways was he not doing very well? Was he just not understanding, or was he not doing what he needed to do? Was he not holding up his end of the bargain? What kind of difficulties was he having?
I would characterize it as probably a little of both. Not doing the work, not doing assignments, not turning things in. And then whenever there were discussions or reach outs about assignments being turned in, there was always some sort of an excuse that would blame other people. Like, oh, the system didn't work. And a lot of reach out to parents, and the parents would say, oh, well, they did try to do that. They did turn it in last night. And I would look and it wasn't turned in. And, oh, well, it's there was a problem. Canvas was down. Oh, no, Canvas was not down. Well, there was some sort of an issue with the technology at our house. Okay, well, there's A, B, C, and D as an option to fix that. And that sort of back and forth did go on through the next couple of quarters as well.
What was the relationship like between you and the student from day one, from when you first met him through the year?
Towards the beginning of the year, I thought the relationship seemed fine, seemed appropriate. But became evident to me that it was not as positive or as strong as I would have liked it to have been. I continued to try harder as a teacher to find ways to connect with them. And I'm not sure I was successful, but perhaps with the shift towards the end of the year, eventually I was, because the last 2 or 3 months of the year, the dynamic definitely changed. The students started taking responsibility for their behavior and really seemed to adjust in their overall attitude. Even ran into the student towards the beginning of this year, and they yelled all the way across the courtyard, "Hello, hello, how are you? How was your summer?" So seemed to shift.
You know, they do grow up. You never know when they're going to cross some kind of line and realize that maybe it's not even a realization. It's just, I feel differently than I did. I feel more, I don't know, serious, more engaged. I feel less threatened. I feel less need to assert that, hey, it's not because I can't do it that I'm not doing it. It's because I don't want to do it. And everybody has to see that. Maybe for some reason, the need that people have to be seen in a particular way just faded for this kid.
So, Donna, would you say that at the beginning of the year, you felt connected to this kid and then he started pulling away and getting sarcastic, kind of detaching from you? Or was it just that you didn't have a sense for him? I'm just trying to figure out if there was a shape to this, from connected to disconnected to connected again, or if it started out kind of disconnected and then he started manifesting the disconnect much more obviously to you, and then it came together at the end. How would you characterize that?
Yeah, I would say more than likely, maybe I just didn't see him or us for where it was as a student-teacher relationship, and then that was manifesting as the year progressed. And then we seemed to work through that and end on a much more strong and positive note.
Yeah.
It's like you gave him the benefit of the doubt to begin with, and then his, I would say, like little darts kind of started penetrating, started hitting. I'm so interested in the parents. If he went from making excuses for everything, and you discovered that his parents made the same excuses, like parent, like child, I mean, why wouldn't he be blaming everybody else for his flaws or his failings if that's what he was being taught to do at home? And it just makes me wonder what was going on at home and if something shifted at home that made him feel more confident or competent or just more focused, more able to be present in the classroom. Something like, and it was riveting. It just sounds like such an offloading of poison. As you described yourself, you felt sad, frustrated, undermined, disrespected. I always think in these moments, could it be that boy was feeling that way, the way he was making you feel by making that comment? Can you make a guess as to why he might have been feeling that way in that moment, given what you know about him and his family or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many factors, right, that we have to take into account when we get to know our students, right? There's physical factors, there's their age development, there's what's happening at home, there's the background of how their experience was the previous year with how confident they might be in the subject matter. And there's so many things that we look at. And as the year progressed, some of those things did become more clear to me. He's a bigger guy. He was a middle school student that if you looked at him probably could pass as a 9th or 10th grade student. So he kind of had a big presence to him, right? And his parent was also a professor of the subject matter. So there might have been some potential pressure for him to feel like he knows this material. Plus, I do believe there was some difficulties at home. I believe that there were a couple of different parents involved in terms of households involved. So there might have been different messaging in one home versus another. All those things I didn't know right up front. But as the year progressed, it's definitely possible that those all came into play.
That's very interesting. I love the idea that this student was making you his professor parent and being braver with you than he could possibly be with a professor parent. Like, I'm not actually interested in this language. You think I'm supposed to be as good as you, or I think I'm supposed to be as good as you, but I'm actually not. I mean, it's really riveting, right? It's very interesting to think that this was a version of what people in my field call individuation, separating and establishing yourself as an individual in stark contrast to your parents. And it's risky for a 14-year-old to be pulling with his powerful parent, but maybe not so risky with his potentially powerful teacher. But you were such a convenient object for him to act out on because you just didn't have the kind of power that his parent did.
Yeah. Just by virtue of being the person standing in front of the room, you serve as this platform onto which he's going to project everything and going to do all of his climbing and his reacting to whoever's standing there. It feels personal because you're the person right there, but it isn't really even necessarily personal. And sure, sometimes okay, you believe that the book was a valid tool for teaching. You sold this book, you held this book up as I believe this will work. And then he shit on it. He sort of gave that really sarcastic assessment of the book. So in that way, it's tough not to take that personally. I could have chosen to teach anything and I chose this, but that is what you're going to make fun of. Oh my gosh, he's making fun of Donna. He's making fun of me. This is about me. But somebody else would have chosen something else. And very likely the same, he would have needed to make fun of that too.
If his need was to use this object of the book to convey to his parents through you, kind of convince himself that he had power in this by shoving you hard. And of course, you're going to feel that shove as a personal shove, but it's so totally not. And I just want to suggest that I think this happens a lot with teachers, that teachers confuse with their content. They confuse with the book that they're teaching. This idea that if I teach a book, it's because I love the book or this book is important to me. And now I'm somehow fused with the book. So any criticism of the book is a criticism of me. I think teachers don't fuse with your content. It's not you. And kids have to have something to push against. They have to have the right to have an opinion about what it is that you're teaching them or what you're making them read. And to take that personally is you're just going to get in the way, right, of letting them have their opinions. That's if the book is actually what the student is hating. But if the student is using you as an object to displace his negative feelings towards his professor parent onto you, much safer person, that might make you a really perfect person for this kid to act out on because you're not judging him or accusing him or labeling him or somehow making him feel stupid. You just kind of took it in and did nothing, let it sit there. And so did the students, by the way. Not laughing was a really great response. He wasn't validated really in any way, but he didn't get what I think he probably expected, which could have been judgment because he's just not good at Spanish. It's not about his not being good at Spanish. It's about his hating the content. So it's the content's fault. Once again, it's the content's fault for him not getting it or not enjoying it or not being able to feel as though he deserves your praise. And that might have been another cause for him, another trigger for him. I actually didn't understand what happened or I didn't do the work and therefore I can't take in the praise. So I'm going to push the praise away for everybody.
Yeah.
And one thing that pops into my head too is as we talk about this, which is really an amazing process because it gets you thinking about the events that are occurring and detaching a little bit emotionally from them and understanding perhaps where some of these behaviors, some of them come from, not all of them. But I also wonder too, it occurred to me that perhaps there's pressure for him to have a better understanding because his peers are thinking, well, your family, your parent teaches this. And so perhaps the need to not feel like they didn't know, and so therefore not doing the work because perhaps it would show the struggle.
Exactly. I'm also thinking of the frame of one up, one down, that if he's feeling the way you were feeling, sad, frustrated, undermined, and disrespected, and if he couldn't even respect himself because he was doing such a terrible job in Spanish, he knew he wasn't doing it. He knew he felt inadequate and uncomfortable. He might have tried to assert his dominance in the classroom by making the snarky comment about the book that he actually didn't understand or didn't work on, right? So he's making everybody else one down, and you in particular, because he needed to feel one up. He needed to feel competent, superior, when in fact he felt inferior. That's another guess. If I think about a snarky kid trying to grab the attention of the student because he feels inferior, that makes me feel sad for him. I mean, you were feeling that sadness. That might be an explanation for that sadness a little bit. Dude, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this. how sad for you to feel that insecure and that inferior. And I feel like that kind of sadness and compassion is really helpful in moving forward. And also it helps you to detach from the barb, from the poison, because it's like, oh, dude, you're trying to make me hurt, but I don't hurt for me. I'm hurting for you. I feel sad for you.
Yeah. Were you happy with how you reacted in the moment, Donna? Or is this something that kind of haunts you because you wish you had responded differently? Or do you feel like, no, I took the high road and did the right thing and it paid off? What are your thoughts looking back on how you reacted?
I feel like I did the best that I could in that moment. And I don't regret any. I wouldn't have wanted there to be a power struggle. I wouldn't have wanted to take away from the message, which was that, wow, you guys just read a book. This is amazing. Be proud of yourselves. Did I handle it perfectly? I'm sure I did not. Like I said, I know that my emotions sometimes show on my face, and I may have come out in my tone of my voice, but I am glad that I brought it back to the positive message that I was wanting to get out.
Can I just normalize this for a second? Just want to say, for you to have an appropriate response to a snarky comment like that, for your face to show like, what the fuck? Would have been appropriate. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Good for you then, pat yourself on the back, because I feel like kids know when they're being assholes. And for teachers or for parents or others to show them, wow, you're kind of being an asshole right now by the look on their face, especially if we don't follow up with, with, as you were saying, Joe, another snarky comment that puts you on top, but makes you a bigger asshole,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to be in a power struggle. You want to show up. You want to show up with presence. I want teachers to show up and be present to what's going on, but not necessarily feed into the dynamic. And it sounds like you didn't. You did a keto with it. You might have made a face like, what? Really? Which would have been appropriate and might have sent the message. It probably did send him the message he needed to see, but not here, because then you would have called him out and then it would become, more of a hassle. The students saw it and they probably appreciated that you were responding to him appropriately and adequately, because they needed someone to do that to him. They probably didn't appreciate his undermining, diminishing their own accomplishment that they were in the midst of feeling proud of. So I would say the look on your face probably did a lot of work, a lot of good work, without your having to own it. And it might have kept you from escalating with him. Your natural instinct to worry about being unkind or not nice in response to a snarky comment allowed you to kind of withdraw from that and do the Aikido that you did and reiterate how proud you were of everybody. Sounds like you did a really, really good job. And somehow he got the message. Eventually, he understood that you were actually a trustworthy and caring adult who wasn't going to cave under his bullshit and also wasn't going to dominate him and crush him. It wasn't going to be that kind of one up, one down dynamic at all.
I do have to say, and thank you for helping me to see that, but I also want to share too that it was frustrating. And as my colleagues probably remember, I would frequently have to debrief with them about various things that would come up, throughout the next few quarters, because the dynamic was there for a little while and it was frustrating, very frustrating.
Given what we've talked about, is there something you would have done differently if you could relive that year? And if you had had this kind of conversation early on, would you have done anything differently?
I think I would have allowed myself to not be as affected as I was by the behavior that I was dealing with, understanding that perhaps the behavior could have been triggered by the student's own insecurity with a language that they feel like they should know better, with the parent being a teacher of that, or feeling pressure from peers to have a little bit better grasp, or maybe just not having a good grasp because they weren't putting in the effort or the engagement, the previous year as well as the beginning of this year. And if I had seen it differently, if I'd framed it differently, if I detached and didn't take it so personally, I would have just saved myself a little bit of energy and probably been in a little bit of better state of mind, myself.
Yeah. These things do haunt us, though. It is a visceral reaction when someone throws something at you and you duck. Your whole body tingles with this fight or flight danger mechanism. And when realize, oh, but it was not an object that could hurt me. It was just a joke. They flung it at me to startle me and it worked and everything is fine. The pain and the shock, the fight or flight that you get when it's just a sarcastic comment from a student, but it's still a sarcastic comment launched hurtfully at you. I think all sarcasm is meant to be hurtful, maybe in a tender way, but it's meant to mock. That's just tough to get over. And I don't think that we need to be bulletproof about that and be like, well, I'm not a good teacher unless I can be completely invulnerable to that. No, it hurts in the moment. You get all the reactions, you get all the visceral, like, I must avenge myself. You must be made to suffer because I was made to suffer. That springs up. But then if hopefully you can detach a little bit, oh yeah, that was kind of scary. But why would he do that?
Yes, exactly.
What is my job here? My job is not to avenge myself against all wrongs. I am guiding not just him. And if I stoop to that, and if I jump down in the pit with him and fight with him about it, then everybody else just watching the two of us fight instead of being guided through the material.
Exactly. This is what sucks about being a developmental partner, is that you're going to have your natural reactions. Yours, Donna, was much gentler than wanting to get revenge, but we're going to have our natural reactions. But developmental partners don't get to swat a kid because they feel like hitting them. We have to figure out how to notice what's happening inside ourselves and detach somehow. And this is why I think the TSG work that we're doing now is so helpful, especially when something happens, because then right there at the moment or soon thereafter, you get to stop and think, what might be going on inside that kid? What is my reaction like? And then how, number one, can I exercise that detachment? And how can I understand the kid, which helps with the detachment? And how can I anticipate the next barb, the next attack? And if I can anticipate the next attack, then I can be like, oh, there it is, data, he's doing it. And if he doesn't attack, you can notice at the end of every day, he didn't do it. Now, why might that be? What was going on? What were the conditions? So I feel like anything we can do to be deliberate, strategic about dealing with these kids in particular who identify themselves from the get-go as being hotspots, just having our attention drawn to them and having a chance to formulate the possibilities around the dynamic, what might be happening here dynamically, making some good guesses so that you can try different things, making plans for what kind of experiment you're going to run, means that, number one, you won't be as caught off guard. Number two, you won't be hijacked. Your body won't be snatched away from you. And all of a sudden now you're suffused with feelings you don't want to have. But also you'll have more energy available for the other kids in the room.
Yeah.
Right. So that your focus, as soon as that barb comes, our focus is right on that kid because we have got to protect ourselves, right? Just as you're saying, Joe, this kind of fight or flight. Oh my God, I'm endangered. But to be ready for it, because you've had this kind of conversation, you've formulated what might be going on with the kid, then you will have more available for the entire class. And that's what they all deserve. And I know that teachers want to be able to keep their vision open, right? The peripheral vision for everybody in the classroom open rather than being focused on one bad actor.
Yeah. Being prepared for the next barb is such a useful exercise. Over the weekend, I was in a fairly remote area with not a lot of electric car chargers, and I really needed a charger. I went to a fast charger near where we were, and suddenly it wasn't working. And the next nearest charger was 20 miles away. So I was, all right, I'm going to drive to that charger. And I spent the 20 minutes driving to that charger where I'd never been before, preparing myself for the very real possibility that this one also wouldn't work. I'm like, okay, if I get there and it doesn't work, what will I do? I will go on to the next one, and which I know is another like 15 miles. So when I get there, if it doesn't work, there is no point spending a whole lot of energy getting furious. Just go on to the next one. And when I got to the second, the 20-mile away charger, it worked. So I didn't have to have any kind of reaction. The thing was, though, sitting there as I was charging, and it takes a little while, I realized I had saved myself all kinds of anxiety on the ride over. It's not only that I saved myself from the negative reaction if it hadn't worked, Leading up to it, I was in better shape. Leading up to it, my heart rate wasn't going up because I was consciously preparing myself. What will I do if I get there and it doesn't work? By preparing yourself for the next barb that comes your way, thinking about it all the time. Somebody's going to chuck a barb at me. Somebody's going to be sarcastic with me. How am I going to react to that? You will improve not only your eventual reaction, but you will suffer less leading up to it. You stress less about it just by thinking about it. They're going to throw stuff at me. They're just gonna. That's the way they are. They're kids. It's the way they are. How am I going to deal with it next time it comes?
Yeah, I have witnessed in many support groups with various teachers that being prepared like this also weirdly prevents the need for that person that you're ready for to act out in the first place. So I'm thinking, Joe, that all of your thinking all the way down to that first charger, the charger was like, okay, fuck it, I'm not going to break. I'm going to work for him. Right? The point is that happens with human beings.
Manifested.
Exactly. You made it so. But walking into a classroom ready for a kid to be obnoxious, ready for it, looking forward to it, like you're set.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
weird how we pick up on each other. And I had so many teachers say, it didn't happen. I was all ready for it and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because I think we communicate our readiness for each other, especially if the readiness, I think, is healthily come to, that we are ready in a compassionate and developmentally supportive way. So that's another reason to do what we're doing now earlier on in a school year, all you listeners out there, because it has all these amazing salutary effects
Yeah.
for everybody.
The more I prepare for these emotional situations as a teacher, the less they come up.
Yeah, right. Or the more I'm ready, the more I actually am.
Yes.
Because this emotion work, it's not just preparing yourself and then somehow foreclosing on anything happening to you. Being ready also can mean being really good at detaching quickly, or being good at laughing in the face of some feint from a student that you just are like, oh, sweetie, you can't get to me. I'm good. I love you all, whatever. So the emotion work manifests in different ways and does different things to different teachers, but it's so, so valuable to feel. Here's another thing I was going to say, to feel like an agent in your world, an agent in your own life. Like, Joe, you were making yourself an agent in a totally uncertain world. You didn't know whether or not that charger was going to work. And Donna, for you to be, I'm ready for you, dude. I'm ready. Next time you throw me a barb, I'm going to catch that thing like a superhero, right? And I won't even throw it back. I'll just drop it on the floor, right? I'm ready for it. That is you being an agent in your own life. And you're the only person who can be an agent in your life. You can't be an agent in the kid's life. You can't be an agent in the charger's life, but you can be an agent in your life. And it makes such a difference to feel like, I got this. I can do what I'm going to do. I'm going to exercise the power I have. And I'm not going to exercise power over anybody except for myself. It's so reassuring because it's actually quite proportional. I don't have to control him. I don't have to stop him from doing anything. I can live with the fact that he's throwing barbs, not just at me, but at me in public, right? But I don't have to stop it. I know how I'm going to handle it. And knowing that ahead of time means I'm an agent and I can manifest my self-respect and my own dignity. And I can model for him how he might retain his dignity and possibly feel some self-respect, or recognize that he has an option. He could be much more respectful of himself and others. It's all win-win. This kind of work, I think, just adds up to win-win, because relationships get, I don't know, it's like teachers at least get to stay open and both receptive to what the kids are doing and hitting us with, but also really generous and kind to ourselves. The teachers can be kind to themselves and be ready with the kinds of responses that they want to have. And you, Donna, are just gentle and with your kids. You don't want to hammer them at all. And that's a really great quality, but it makes you seem vulnerable, and being ready to manifest that kind of vulnerability without feeling as though you're now losing your agency or losing your position or losing the respect of the kids or anybody else or your own self-respect. That's like incalculably valuable for you and for the kids.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm really interested in what are the takeaways that everybody is stewing on right now, because I know we're all thinking, wow, what's the takeaway?
I like the idea of, as I've processed through a lot of this with both of you, allowing for that detachment of the emotion that has occurred, and knowing that I can be an agent. We can be agents of our own selves, our own reactions, the way that we handle things. That includes the internalization that's happening.
By internalization, what do you mean?
Taking what has occurred and feeling at blame or at fault or feeling negatively towards self versus looking at what has occurred and detaching from it, being an agent of one's own reaction, and then perhaps that behavior is explained in other ways. And in some cases, it doesn't even really matter, just being able to detach from it.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah. I think we might spend too much energy trying to find ways in which this clearly mean remark, oh, he didn't mean it to be mean. I see now. I see. It wasn't meant to be mean. No, it was. It was meant to be mean. You don't have to find some way in which I get it. The bad thing was entirely a misunderstanding. No, you understood it perfectly. That was how it was meant. But those are going to keep coming. They're always going to come. You're not a failure when they do. That's just natural. You're going to walk a lot. You're going to trip sometimes. You're going to wash a lot of dishes. You're going to drop one here and there. That doesn't mean you're terrible. This is how it goes. This is the landscape we move in.
Our students are going to drop things too. We're all going to fumble, but we're also going to be self-indulgent as well, right? And that kid was being self-indulgent without knowing it. It's not like he was thinking, oh, I know, here's a dart. Perfect. Here's a little bit of poison I'm going to put and I'm throwing it at Donna. That's not what he was doing. What he had to do to get this, whatever was going on inside him, out of him.
Yeah.
We're making guesses about what might have been going on inside of him. And we have some great guesses that he felt stupid, that he actually wasn't good at what he was trying to do. He felt inferior and insecure, and for all kinds of good reasons. So that kind of analysis is very helpful because now you've got a sense of what's going on with him and can alter. You can prepare for him and alter your treatment and detach because it's not you. You dropped nothing. He dropped the hint that he's actually not feeling good about himself. We do, as human beings, have to be very kind to ourselves and to our students because we're all going to mess up, not just in terms of not handing in a homework assignment or, not putting an accent on the right letter or not using the subjunctive right or saying something dumb. We're all going to make mistakes. But when students are teaching us more about themselves, when there's psychodynamic information out there, that is there's no blame there at all. What you're doing is picking up on, oh my God, there's some shit going on between me and this kid. I'm feeling it in my body. I don't want to feel it. So I would say my axiom is love your garden. Be aware of your garden. Because, Donna, you have a garden that kid threw a dart into. And we, as teachers, can let those darts start a fire or poison us or something. Or we can just be like, oh, interesting. Like I said, grab it, drop it to the ground, and then look over the garden wall at that kid in his garden and make some guesses about what's going on in his garden, because his garden is not my garden. It's not your garden. Your garden is good. You were praising everybody. You know you're right that they did a fantastic job, right? Don't let him deter you from what you know is true. The job is to notice, oh, he's suddenly drawing my attention to his garden. And his garden is messy and gross right now. And he would rather not be there. He'd rather not be feeling what he's feeling. He'd rather send it out to me. And I can grab that dart and jam it right in my heart. Or I can drop it and say, oh, this is interesting. Here's an interesting moment. I'm going to bring this to my TSG because I want to figure out what he's teaching me about himself. That's the move. Keep your gardens straight. There was nothing wrong with your garden until you grabbed his dart and decided that his dart defined your garden for you. That was the wrong move. And being an agent is, no. I'm not buying it. I know what I know. I don't know about you, but I'm going to figure it out because I have a way to figure out what might be going on with you, kid.
Right. And the dart still hurts.
I don't think it has to hurt. I do think that preparation can help us prepare even for that. If we're prepared, then we can actually turn it around that much faster from, oh my God, you just stung me, to, okay, there we go. You're probably feeling insecure right now. So how can I, because part of your plan is, what am I going to do to help him manage his insecurity, right? But if he's instructionally, academically insecure right now, or even relationally insecure, there are things I can do to maybe bring him in and make him feel a little bit better about himself.
Totally.
No, that was amazing. It's helpful, especially as teachers. We have stewardship over a lot of human beings. And it's important for us, like you say, to take care of our garden and to not allow the behaviors or just different things going on in different students' lives, reactions, intentional or unintentional, whatever the case might be, to affect us in ways that are counterproductive to our own well-being, and also just leading the classroom in being a model and helping students continue to grow and learn.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's what we do.
Donna, thank you so much. This has been excellent. This has been like a mini TSG, right?
Mhm.
Just the three of us with two kind of co-facilitators. This is what it's like, basically. And I really thank you for being so brave and putting up with our poking and jabbing. And
No, thank you. I appreciate the chance to work through some of these daily, weekly, monthly, whatever they might be, things that we deal with as teachers and educators. I appreciate that.
Sure.
right on. If you out there listening are interested, you're thinking, hey, I got a story I can tell, and it can be just this simple. Give us a call at 413-239-4158. Just leave a message. I won't answer the phone. You don't have to talk to me. Just leave a message, and you might just hear your story on air, and Joe and I can try to unpack it a little bit and see what we think. 413-239-4158. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you again, Donna. And thank you, Joe, as always. This has been fun. And I love it more than anything.
Thank you, Butts. Donna, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome.
TTE is a Podvision production, created and hosted by me, Betsy Burris, and co-hosted by Joe Johnson. Production and audience development support from Julian Androkaya and Andrea Koskay. Crucial editing by Brad Wells. And the music, which makes me smile and dance every time I hear it, by Tom Burris of Jabbering Trout. Thanks one and all. If you like this episode, text it to a friend. And if you haven't already, sign up for my Substack, where you can become a paid subscriber and get all kinds of goodies, including exclusive podcast episodes that will change your life. That's teachingthroughemotions.com. Thank you for listening.
It's all true.